So hello everybody, and thanks again for letting me come and join you all. I feel like I'm one of those robots with things coming out my head, because everything that Sarah said, I was thinking, oh, I must remember that, and then everything that Karen said, I'm thinking, oh, now I've got all these things. So first of all, you all get the chance to say, what do you want me to talk about before I launch into it? Is there any burning issue apart from what we've heard about early communication, which is one of my things? Can I just start? Right. Well, I'm now, because I've retired from the acute paediatrics and neonates, I'm now involved with the network. I told you about it last time, about the children with exceptional healthcare needs. And many, if not all, of your surviving children are likely to have exceptional healthcare needs, as defined by NHS Scotland, which means that they will either have tube or intravenous feeding and other disabilities, or depend on a ventilator and have other significant disabilities. So it's that sort of combination which the Scottish Health Service acknowledged meant that there was an exceptional mixture of healthcare needs for that group of children and young people, and they allowed us to have a national network, and the national network aims to have input across the country. And just ask Karen to plug her ears at the moment. This was to move away from everything being in Glasgow and Edinburgh and a bit in Aberdeen. So we're trying to say that wherever you live, you can have access to the health services that your child or young people might need. And from my what I had learnt from SOFT mostly, and SOFT parents, I had been aware of where there were significant gaps, and the one which we maybe can expand upon a bit today is the one moving into adult services, where we heard about 20-year-old, and transition is flavour of the month for a lot of services at the moment. And my job, I suppose, through SEN, is to keep saying health service transition is not just a single event. There are lots of bits of health service, and they all think that theirs is the most important bit, and so they will have a transition plan, but they won't know about the next door room's transition plan from a different specialty, which may not quite happen in the same way at the same timing, and so the family may be going through many transition processes. So our network is trying to look at how we can raise awareness of this and then hopefully bring about some improvements. So we're looking at care pathways, and we've taken our parents' lead. And I think I said to you last time that we've got our amazing experts by experience, and any volunteers who want to join us, we're very keen to have as many experts as we can get. But our experts, our existing experts by experience group, have given us their priorities. They meet with us to lead the work that we're doing on the care pathways, and they're very involved in the educational events that we have, which we try to make open to practitioners and families so that we make it that we learn together. And Nadia, who's here today, Nadia Bowley, is my favourite friendly dietitian, who is involved because our next education day is going to be around feeding and nutrition. And one of our aspects of that, and a reason why I knew Nadia would be the right person, is that we want to talk about blended diets and the difference between all of your feeding being by mouth and being allowed to experience taste as one of your senses, to not be denied that because you have tube feeding. And one of the things that we're working on to go with that is we've had leaflets, and used to be DVDs, which are now, I'm sure Sean wouldn't even remember what they are, but we had DVDs about the emotional impact of tube feeding, and another one on what to expect when your child has complex needs. And so we're revising and updating both of those. And again, we need input from families, like the input that you've been giving us this morning about what to expect. And we need to be saying if there are pathways that you can expect to be given information and then care within these standards, so that the standards are known to people when they're experiencing, and they're not just theoretical standards that the senior managers know about and nobody else gets to see them, because that is a reason for them not being met. So we're changing our updates. The what to expect one, I would love to hear from yourselves about whether we can or whether we should try and put everything together, which is what the old leaflet did, just saying if your child has complex needs, this is what to expect. And we felt that there was a difference in what people might know to expect depending on the age when their child was noted to have complex needs. And I think someone said that they had several months before their child had a diagnosis, their baby had a diagnosis, and so their experience is going to be different from somebody who antenatally is told you might have a baby who's going to have this condition and this condition has these associations with it. So we're thinking of looking at neonatal, if you like, the antenatal, neonatal pregnancy time, and then older in childhood, and then the what to expect changes with every transition that you come to, transition into nursery, out of nursery, into school, out of primary, into secondary, and then the one that is currently being used as what people think of as transition is into adult services. And I realised as a doctor that I thought I knew about transition. I'd been on a working group about transition. We'd done the guidelines about transition into adult for specific diagnoses, but we never joined the bits together. And so we let the diabetes people have transition, and they thought we've got it right. You know, we have a transition team and we have joint clinics and we have the coordinator. But then next door came the renal team, who had got it right because they had a specialist nurse and a guideline and transition team and a joint clinic. And so it went on cardiology, respiratory, and on and on. And then ARC, which is a different ARC, this is the Association for Real Change, which is all about transition to adulthood for everybody. And they told us that they had a new app on transition called Compass, which was for young people with additional support needs. And I thought, this is it, we got it. So I said, can I join Compass? So I duly went along to the work groups and found that they didn't know about our transition because they were talking about transition under education and transition under social work to adult social work services. And so suddenly I was this little bit at the end about health transition. And so the ARC Compass app is great for overall transition for any young person, but there's a whole lot more to it for young people, like the young people that we're talking about today. So as someone just said, there's a long way to go, but there is an awareness beginning to be acknowledged that these are issues which are important and sadly have been up to families often to coordinate themselves, do it themselves, find the way through, with or without help and experience that they could call upon. So today I'm very keen that I hear from yourselves about where you think we should be going. We have groups for these care pathways for the different, we took it from the experts that they would prefer to have age groups rather than what's happening to the child, that it's not when you go home from hospital transition, but what's happening to you as a person. So we're trying to emphasise that we're trying to look after a person who then has conditions that need help, and not we're trying to look after conditions that affect a person. The person is the end of the line, and that person is part of a family, and the family need looking after. And I think there are areas where there are still big gaps that we need to be thinking about. I haven't got the solutions, but to at least begin to acknowledge that we've got a lot to learn from brothers and sisters, from friends and schoolmates, from teachers and nursery teachers and support workers in classrooms who have all got experience that they could be sharing with us and helping us to learn as professionals. So I'm very keen to hear from you all. And particularly today, I suggested that we invite a dietitian because I felt I'm not an expert in that area. I do listen to Radio 4 a lot, so I have to confess I know all about the microbiome and the food programme. So I know that it's really important for everybody. And I knew when I mentioned it, some parents I was talking to were so excited about someone who didn't say they couldn't give a blended diet that I realised that we had a gap in our knowledge. So I'm delighted that Nadia's here and maybe would say a little bit about her experience with blended diets. And then we can maybe share some conversation. So Nadia, do you want to come and join me? Yay, come on. Just tell them blended diets are good things. Yeah, please.
Thank you. Oh, perfect. I'll hook you up. That's okay. Okay. It will make you louder.
You promise.
I promise.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. I am honoured to be here. I have already learnt a lot and got a little bit tearful. So tend to be an emotional person, so kind of forgive me for that. There are, if children are unable to eat via the oral route, sufficient amount of nutrients, there's a whole huge host of different things that we can do. You don't have to go for one route because that was the traditional route. There are formulas out there that are nutritionally complete and you can give them to your child and you know that your child is going to receive exactly what they need to what we have calculated out, because clearly every child isn't different. And do you know what I'm saying? But there are also other ways of doing it. And we can look at using a mixture of formula feeds and food that can be blended and provide as much nutrition for your child that can be integral in part of the family's eating plan and way of eating, that that they can sit at the table and eat the same food as the rest of the family, albeit in a slightly different way. And also we have a lot of children that you can give a little bit of blended diet to orally, and when they're becoming tired or fed up, we can use a gastrostomy or something like that to feed the rest of them that diet. So yeah, it's not the only choice to have to go for a tube and a pump and go around that way. There are lots of other ways of doing it. It's about talking to people, sitting down with them, seeing what their circumstances are, finding out what kind of families they are. Some families like things to be more precise, and that's great, that's fine, that's fabulous. And some families are a little less precise, if you know what I mean, and like to do things another way. And there is always a compromise. My life is full of shades of grey and very little black and white. I don't want to say a huge amount. I want to answer lots of questions, if you have any. And I'm hoping Una will back me up.
Absolutely.
Was that okay? Was that okay? Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm really pleased that Nadia's come and that you're all open to telling us what you think, because one of the areas which one of our parents asked about was when we're talking about the emotional impact, that the decision to have your child not eat in the way that you have expected. And I think it's one of the things that I thought with Karen's talk, I used to, when I was doing neonates, try to explain to the juniors, the trainees, that everybody imagines the baby they're going to have in some way, and whether it's very specific or just vaguely that I'm going to become a parent, there's some thought about what the future might look like that is changed when the baby is not as you had imagined. And part of what we used to do in neonates was usually with babies who are premature, to explain that it does come as a shock and take time to adjust to that new reality. And I know Caroline's got a really good talk about you land in Amsterdam, I remember, instead of where you expected because you booked to go to Rome. And so that change in what to expect and your ability to hear new information when you are changing your imagination is very hard when people take different times to do that. And some of this is what might happen when you're thinking about not feeding your child. and how that affects the feeling you have as a parent about my job is giving my child nourishment, and now I can't do that anymore in the way that I had imagined, has a varying emotional impact. And when we started to look at the update, I discovered that there's almost nothing about it in the medical literature, that all the training, and it's one of the criticisms that's come back, is that the doctors and the dietitians are obsessed with weight and growth and centiles, and if you're not on the right one, then they have to do something, and that do something might be put down a tube or change the way that the feed is being given, and the emotional effect of that is often just not recognised. And so when we started doing this, it was quite funny, because I started asking, thinking, as I still naively do, somebody must have done this before, there must be an expert here. And whenever I contacted expert groups who have tube feeding as part of what they often do, they asked if they could come and use my new booklet about emotional impact, because nobody had ever asked before. So I think there's a bit of a gap. We need parents to tell us what to go in the booklet so that we can help people, and maybe get that balance between the centile charts and the pleasure in eating to be brought together, to look at questions like, how do we know if and when a child is uncomfortable when a tube feed's going in because they can't push the plate away? When do we know we've got something that they like? Do they taste it when it goes into their stomach through a tube? Do they actually get some of the joy of the taste of the food? All of these things, we need help. So, open discussion, please.
Well, I can answer one of the questions. So, we give Duralite, so probably everybody knows what Duralite is. If you have diarrhea or vomiting, or if you can't eat it, it replaces your electrolytes. So quite often when I was ill, she wouldn't feed, or she would be very sick, and we would give her gut rest with Duralite. But you can get plain Duralite, you can also get blackcurrant Duralite. Isla does prefer blackcurrant Duralite, and I know that because she tastes it, and you can see her, or you could when she was smaller, you would all of a sudden hear. So other than baby forage, she's not really had the normal feeding systems or experiences, but yes, she definitely does taste it, but from almost a refluxy sense that I'm aware of, other than wanting to pinch whatever's on my plate and get a little sort of oral taste.
Well, that goes with the blended diet question, doesn't it? About what are we asking the children to taste, because reflux would be very common. So we can almost assume they'll taste something. And can it be something tasty?
And most of the artificial feeds are very bland and neutral. There are often varieties that are kind of sick feeds that are exactly the same thing with a flavour, but all of the ones that I can think of are definitely neutral.